everywhere across the board, they're playing great football. I just don't want to see a letdown today against Seattle after that big win last week.
Yeah, this guy Dennis came with punting stats. He's like, "How about that big helicopter kick, dude? Look at you!
Awesome.
Look at you using adjectives."
Well, dudes have a hard time catching it. I don't know anything about it, but I just know that if the thing's coming down like spinning,
guy's got a magic foot. Is what he's got.
Whoa.
How does he do that? How do you make a football helicopter?
Why?
I don't know, Dennis. I don't know.
Across the board,
it's a skill set that we didn't need when you played. I'll tell you that. But now, who knew we needed it? Now we're looking. Now we're hitting the margins here, getting every luxury we can, helicopter kicks and all that.
And we're talking about kickers again.
I know. Sorry,
punters, Dennis. Punters
in practice, because I know Pete Carroll teams do this, where like at the end of practice you wouldn't have to run or something if a big offensive or defensive lineman could catch a punt. Did you guys ever do that?
I don't know if we did that. We did the touchdown thing. So Guy McIntyre was always the guy we would throw throw a long bomb or long pass to, and if he caught it, we didn't have to do conditioning or something like that.
You guys probably went crazy.
And he dropped it every time.
So. We always did this when I was in Little League and like Babe Ruth age, because I'm really fast and I was always a leadoff guy. They would always have the slowest kid on the team, like kind of a heavier kid.
Yeah.
They'd have him run
like the freeze.
We would do that. We would play freeze. I didn't even think about it like that. He would go to the second he hit second base, I was allowed to leave home plate and I would try to catch him. Rounding.
Did you catch him?
A couple of kids, yeah. Sometimes you're on teams where the slowest kid isn't that slow. You know what I mean? But sometimes you get kids where that kid's a DH.
Yeah,
that kid's like playing first base,
right? Like
that kid's a first baseman.
Yeah,
he's chugging around the base paths. But Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you. Let's get into a little bit of this quarterback comparison. We'll do that when we come on back here ahead of the Niners and the Seattle Seahawks. The Niners undefeated since coming off of the bye. They played fantastic last week after the first two drives of the game, both offensively and defensively. And give a little credit to the defense, who was getting pushed but did not break. It was a whole lot of bend and don't break. Real quick, circling back what you guys were saying about the secondary, and Ambry Thomas led the team in tackles last week at 7, 3 passes defensed. Also in the game. As a team, Niners had 11 passes defended. Charvarius Ward had 4. And we thought they might struggle with the combo of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They did have 210 combined yards. I think Jalen Hurts, though, because of how ineffective he was, that didn't come back to beat him. He was only 57.8% completion on the day, 298 passing, which is something that I don't think he wants to have to do. I think they would much prefer he's able to get out and run a little bit. Just 20 rushing yards on the day. They were a one-dimensional unit, the Philadelphia Eagles were last Sunday. Niners and the Seahawks, another rivalry game renewed. Niners are 4-0, including postseason play. Since Russell Wilson left for the Denver Broncos, we'll see if they can make it 5 consecutive against Pete Carroll's boys today. 105 kick right here from Levi Stadium. When we come back, we'll get into the quarterback comparison. Brock Purdy, Geno Smith, or is it going to be Drew Lock? We'll talk about that next. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lund, Niners, Seahawks, Week 14 on the Sports Leader.
Deebo Samuel is loose. Touchdown! San Francisco, the Deebo dash.
What a play call. Quick perimeter screen out to the left. Quick snap. Deebo's waving bye-bye to this Philadelphia crowd. What an absolute beast. And it's a tunnel screen. They get everybody out in front blocking. Deebo cuts against the grain and then just hits the afterburners. No chance of catching him.
No, there was not. No chance of catching this Niner offense when they were humming the way they did last week against Philadelphia. 42-19 the final, and the Niners get a chance to beat down Pete Carroll for the second time in 3 weeks. Dennis is old defensive coach, man. We'll get into some of that. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, and John Lund with you. It's week 14. And by the way, we were having some technical difficulties earlier. We're now officially streaming on YouTube, twitch.tv/thesportsleader, and of course on KNBR.com and the KNBR app. Niners enter play today in first place, of course, in the NFC West. But as John pointed out earlier in the show, they cannot clinch the NFC West today with a victory and a Rams loss, even though the Rams are going to be playing at Baltimore, should be kicking off here in just a few minutes. Niners at 9-3. Seattle comes in at 6-6, losers of 4 consecutive against the Niners, including postseason play since Russell Wilson left for Denver. Let's get into the focal point of this one. The quarterbacks in this game, is it's going to be a talking point for Seattle if Geno Smith is able to go. The QB comparison sponsored by Friedman's Appliance, proudly serving all of Northern California with a wide selection of luxury appliances. Visit them in Pleasant Hill to see the Friedman's difference, and by Dolce Vita Tequila pure and simple. Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith, serviceable but not fantastic this year. In that loss to the Cowboys last week, 41-35 was the final. Cowboys against the Cowboys, he goes 23 of 41, 334, only a 56% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Did rush for a touchdown as well. Was not sacked on the season. He's thrown for 2,900 yards at just shy of 65% completion and 15 touchdowns to the 9 picks. He's been average at best this year. But, John, you were talking earlier. He may not go, and they're trying him out right now.
Yeah, we're just getting some video from the practice from the field, just a little bit from where we are. And to me, I don't know anything, but he's not moving great. And I think it's a groin injury, so it's going to be a problem with him moving. I'd be surprised. I talked to some friends of mine from Seattle late last night. They're going to be surprised if he can play. Again, the injury was Thursday in practice. It wasn't a pre-existing injury. It's not the injury that he had against the 49ers and was a last-minute decision to play. And so if I was a betting man, and I am, I would bet that he's not going to play. And Drew Lock has not been good. He was not good with the Broncos. He's had a couple of relief appearances this year. He hasn't been very good. Just hasn't been very good. So, yeah, Geno's not playing well. You're 100% right. Did play much better against Dallas. The offensive line it held up a little bit better against Dallas than it did the 49ers. But Drew Lock is certainly a downgrade even from the performance of Geno Smith this year.
Yeah, and we've said it. I mean, this is a team that, this game is pretty important. I mean, just to stay in the playoff, kind of the playoff hunt. So he's going to try to play. And if he does play, he's not going to be very mobile because a growing pull, lateral movement, just running, everything just hurts and you can feel it there. So, I mean, if he's in this football game, he's not going to be very mobile. He's going to be in the backfield. He's going to be in the pocket. And when we talk about this pass rush, he's going to take some shots. So, if he's in there, he's going to try to do his best. But you can't do much with a groin. I mean, the groin is tough. I mean, it's something. It affects everything you do. I mean, just walking hurts with a groin.
There's not much you can't really work it out, right? It's just kind of one that's got to heal because it can get tweaked. You can be feeling okay. You can start running, and then it can tweak again, and it can get worse. And you just get that same stretch feel you want to have, but there's no injection. There's nothing you can do for it really.
And then you just re-injure it. I mean, like you just said. I mean, you just tweak it even more. So if it's a 2-week thing, and it's something that has to heal itself. So if he's in the football game. He's not moving out that pocket very much. He's going to be kind of a sitting duck back there.
So Geno against the Niners on Thanksgiving, his number 6 of 11, 55 yards passing. I mean, it was there was nothing this team could do.
6 sacks too.
6 sacks. He takes in. Actually, I'm looking at the first half stats. Excuse me on that one. That was his first half numbers. I'll get you the totals there. But they basically could not move the ball. They opened with a field goal, then they went punt, pick, punt, and that was it. The Niners went touchdown, punt. Touchdown, punt, field goal. That was their first half. Then they went pick 6 to open the second half. And as John said, then just kind of put it away with that touchdown, the 6-play, 64-yard drive at the end of the game. For Brock Purdy, though, coming off a fantastic performance where he started 0 for 4, finished the game 19 of 23, overall 19 of 27 for a 70.4% completion percentage, 314 yards passing, and 4 touchdowns. I mean, this was supposedly a pretty damn good Eagle defense. Obviously, nothing like we saw last year. On the season, Brock at 31.85 passing yards, 70.2% completion leads the league, 23 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, 21 sacks. Does have 2 rushing touchdowns. He's only got 1 turnover in the last 4 games against Jacksonville, Seattle, and Philadelphia. I get Tampa Bay in there as well. Number 1 in QB rating, number 1 in QBR, number 1 in completion percentage, number 1 in touchdown percentage, number 1 in yards per attempt at 9.6. The guy's a legitimate MVP candidate. I don't know what else there is to say about him.
Yeah, and he's got to be in the conversation, right? I mean, you got Christian McCaffrey, and you got him. The way he's playing, and of course Dak Prescott. But I mean, he continues to impress. Even the games they've lost, he's played well. So he's got to be in the conversation of MVP. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I mean, you can't avoid it at this point.
Yeah, and look, against Seattle, it was the running game and the defense. He was 21 of 30, 209, a touchdown and an interception. That was that Jordan Brooks interception, pick 6, short return to make it 24-10. That was his worst game of the season. One of the worst. I mean, Cleveland wasn't good as well, but he wasn't good. He was great against Philadelphia. Christian McCaffrey had 114 and 2 touchdowns, and as you said, they had 6 sacks and 12 quarterback hits in that game. Defensively, they just got after the offensive line. Big difference, I think, because Abe Lucas, and we talked to, and I know you did too, Copes, to a lot of people from Seattle this week. They think Abe Lucas is their best offensive lineman. He did not play, hadn't played until week 1, or since week 1. Then he played last week against Dallas and fortified the flanks a little bit with he and Cross. The real problem with Seattle is their interior offensive line. They've shuffled that thing. They haven't been very good inside. Javon Hargrave had 1.5 sacks in that game. They dominated from the inside out in that game, and they shut down the run. Today, Ken Walker III is going to be there. He's really big in the screen game for them as well as being a better runner at this point of his career than Zach Charbonnet. But I think the big offensive thing is DK Metcalf, and I know we'll get into that. Ward was awesome against him a couple weeks ago, and then he bounced back, did Metcalf, for 3 touchdowns against the Cowboys, including a 73-yarder, so he was very good. But if Geno doesn't play today, the big story is going to be what can Drew Lock do, because to this point in his career, whether it be Denver or Seattle, he just hasn't gotten it done. Bottom line.
No, especially since he was traded there. I mean, we kind of thought he was going to end up being the starter. When they made that trade, I kind of thought, maybe he'll be the lame duck quarterback for a year, but Geno played himself into that starting role and was fantastic last year. We thought, oh boy, they're going to start rehashing this thing again, become a tough defensive unit, and then run the football effectively with K9 and now Zach Charbonnet. They've been banged up in the last few weeks, and they're now staring down. I mean, they lose this game. Seattle's staring down 6-8. And what's going to be a pretty crowded middle of the NFC West and the wild card picture. Niners, again, playing at a peak level here. I don't see as much potential for a letdown in this one. The health of Seattle paired to the health of the Niners. I mean, they sort of counteract each other there. The Niners' ability to score does not really rise. I mean, Seattle going to put up 35 points back-to-back weeks. I don't know. Dallas's defense is tough. The Niners are much different. Twice in 2 weeks or twice in 3 weeks matching up is obviously tough, Dennis. What happens there? Is it so familiar? Is it? Do you try to throw different things at them? I mean, what are they going to do differently to try to make sure they can keep pace with this Niner offense?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, right? I mean, like we've talked about, it's just a lot of talent. But, Pete Carroll is a good football coach, and he's going to come up with something. It's going to be something in this football game because, like I said, he can't expect to play the 49ers head-to-head and think he's going to win the football game. He's got to do something else. I mean, he's a great motivator, but he doesn't have the talent that the 49ers have on either side of the football. So expect something. Something's going to change. We talk about plays that change football games, special team plays, punts, anything that Pete Carroll can do to kind of move the momentum to the Seahawks. He's going to try to do. So it's going to be a different game.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, as far as Seattle is concerned, especially if they have to go to Drew Lock, and you pointed this out earlier, it's going to have to be a breakdown by the 49ers. Mentally, after the win against Philadelphia, they let down, they commit some stupid turnovers, those kind of things. I don't see it. I mean, look, when we see Kyle Shanahan teams, especially over the last few years, since 2019, take 20 aside because there were so many injuries, but in 19, 21, 22, they don't lose in November, December, January. They do they have in the playoffs. But going down the stretch, they just get better, and it looks the same this year. Now, I know that Eric Armstead has an injury. That's a major concern long term, but you're going to see Kalia Davis in there, and you've got Givens in there. Kinlaw's probably going to start today, and he's played much better over the last few weeks. So they do have depth at that position. It's not only your injuries, but what kind of depth you have. And I think along the defensive line, especially against Seattle, they should be okay as well as Armstead has played. But other than that, they're fully healthy. Knock on wood with this whole thing. But remember last year they went through so many quarterbacks and so many different things. But at the end of the season, they got healthy and they were really tough to beat. And so what's on our mind is the best performance I think they've had all season long. They can fall back, there's no question, but they're relatively healthy. This is kind of what Kyle Shanahan teams do, and you just beat this team 2 weeks ago. It would take a major miracle for the Seahawks in terms of special teams, turnovers, things like that for Seattle to win this game.
Yeah, health is going to be a topic of conversation throughout this game, and I think the remainder of the season. If the Niners stay healthy, and they are as healthy as any team in football right now, they are going to be really, really, really tough to beat. On the other side, Seattle not quite as healthy. We'll talk more about that backfield. Kenneth Walker III, who has not played since November the 19th in that loss to the Rams, still leads the team in rushing and rushing attempts. Zach Charbonnet got banged up in the last few weeks as well. We'll talk more about that secondary and the matchup between DK Metcalf and this 49ers secondary after Ambry Thomas and Charvarius Ward having a couple of fantastic weeks. And what we thought was the weakest unit for the Niners, but as goes the Niner D-line, so goes the secondary. We'll talk more about this one live from Levi Stadium. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown, and John Lund with you. We are going to catch up, by the way, in just a little bit at 10:30 with our 49er insider, Matt Mayoko from NBC Sports Bay Area. He's in the broadcast booth. We'll get you the 49er Player of the Week, your Steve Young show, potentially a hit with the honorary captain as well. More to come here. Niners and the Seahawks, Week 14 on the Sports Leader.
Man, they got good players. You know, some really good dudes that have a lot of experience and stuff. Obviously with Bobby Wagner and then Diggs in the backfield, in the secondary, some boys that are playing corner that have got some experience now under the belts. And so for us, it's like, man, they can make plays. They're smart. They play a bend but don't break kind of defense. And so it's always a challenge when we play them every single time. It's not like, oh, we've beaten them, so we're just going to walk in this game. It's not like that, man. It's the NFL. They're a team right now who needs to win, and so do we. And it's going to be a dogfight like it always is. So we respect the heck out of Seattle. And anytime we play them, we know it's always going to be a dogfight. So that's how we look at it.
Voice of Brock Purdy, the MVP candidate of the 49ers. I think a lot of people would say Christian McCaffrey should be an MVP candidate as well. We'll talk a bit about him and his numbers. Brock, they're talking about the respect for Seattle. That's a lot of respect for a team that has never beaten Brock Purdy. You know what I mean?
Well, he sounds like he's 35.
Doesn't he?
You know,
it's incredible.
So like, you know,
look, we know they're going to bring the tough stuff. We got to come out hard nosed. We got to respect them. That's a tough place to play, a tough crowd. We know they're going to bring their A games,
right.
hard nosed defense. I'm like, you've been in the league for.
He's
like, he's saying what he's supposed to say.
I know he is.
What he's supposed to say. He's a quarterback.
Luke LaLoosh, you know what I mean? Somebody gave him all the script.
It's going to be a tough game. We're going to go out there and give it our best shot. This is a tough team we're playing right now. You know, and he's dominated this squad, right?
Yeah.
He's just dominated.
You know, he's never lost. People talk, oh, he's, you know, never lost to Seattle. He's never lost to an NFC West team as a starter. So, I mean,
that's unbelievable.
6-0. So, I mean, this dude.
That is unbelievable.
I mean, it is. And I'm telling you, everyone's talking about it, and we should look at it. And he said something really interesting there. Look, you lose to today against Seattle. That Philly win means nothing.
Right.
Because you did that so you could be the top seed in the NFC. So they got to keep winning this thing. They got to win out and hope that Philadelphia loses at Dallas tonight. But as far as the MVP race, basically that Cowboys 49ers game was a national game.
Yep.
The game last week against Philly, only Cleveland and LA. The Browns were at the Rams last week. Those were the only two markets that didn't get it. So that's a national game. And then you got Lamar Jackson. Those are the two candidates, Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott. And the other big candidate for the MVP is Lamar Jackson. And you get him on a national game on Christmas. So people are going to be watching that as well. So look, he's going to be able to stage himself. He's played great in those two games against Dallas and Philly, especially last week. If he plays another great game against the Ravens, I don't care what all the talking head shows say. And it's 50 AP voters, so who knows what's in their brains. But how could you deny him if he plays well and beats all three other MVP candidates? And all due respect to CMC, a running back hasn't won it since Adrian Peterson, over 2,000 yards in 2012. Look, I love the guy, and he could go over 2,000 all-purpose yards, and he could be the team MVP, but it's a quarterback award. So he can win Offensive Player of the Year, and Tyreek Hill is going to have something to say about that. But the MVP, it's a quarterback award anymore. And so it's a lot of times best player, best team, and that's maybe going to be Brock Purdy.
Yeah, and, you know, the folks who are voting on this, I mean, have they got the respect for Brock?
That's a great point.
I mean, I think that's what I mean, I don't think the media or nationally, they still kind of believe in Brock Purdy. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, yes, he's in the conversation, but I think it's going to be tough for him to get it just because of that. People are still kind of waiting for him to fail. You know, those 3 games that the 49ers lost, everybody was like, see, I told you. But then he comes back and he plays, you know, like he's been
one pick since like the 3-game losing. I mean, he's been fantastic in those 4 games since the 3-game losing streak in the bye. Jacksonville, Tampa, Seattle, Philadelphia. He's thrown 1 interception, and the Niners are undefeated in those games, and he has been one of the talking points as to why they've been fantastic. He had the perfect performance game. He had a 4-touchdown game last week. I mean, the guy has been incredible. Again, number 1 in the league in QB rating at 116.1, number 1 in QBR at 75.6, number 1 in completion percentage, minimum of 5 games played, at 70.2, number 1 in TD percentage at 6.9, number 1 in yards per attempt at 9.6 yards per completion. It's incredible. So we were looking at the numbers this week as we were talking with Steve Young on Wednesday evening about where the Niners are in pass percentage, number of plays that they run. Because everybody goes, Kyle loves to run the ball. He loves to run the ball. They run the ball at the second highest clip of anybody. I think it's 50.4% or something on the year, 50.3, something like that. They pass it 49.7 or whatever it is. They're right there. They pass it almost as little as any team in the league. Their second lowest percentage. They run it second most of any team in the league, and yet they are elite at the yards per attempt in both. So Brock Purdy has been fantastic with accuracy. If he's throwing it 27 times, it's probably right where you want him to be. But on the ground, with what they've done with Debo, with Christian McCaffrey, the pre-snap motion, Pete Carroll talked about it this week. He said they are doing a lot of information gathering when they try to confuse you. He says it's tough to stop because they've got Debo and McCaffrey. The center is trying to figure out who he's going to block. So they'll move one guy, he says, just to try to pick up and see where somebody moves. He goes, okay, cool. Now I got my play. He goes, they are damn near impossible to stop when they do that, and they can pick up on what your defense is looking for.
Well, and here's the other thing, too. And again, look, so people understand the way the MVP is voted, and this could be a problem for him. It's not just first place votes. It's a number. So there's first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Right? And there might be some people within those 50 voters of the AP who just say, I just don't think Brock Purdy's it. And I could see somebody putting him 10th. Well, that could really screw him up. But in the age of analytics in every single sport, like you just reeled off, he's number one in all these things. It's the best team. And this whole argument of he's got so many great players around him. So does Jalen Hurts. So does Dak Prescott. So did Joe Montana. So did Steve Young. So did Peyton Manning. I mean, go down the line when you have
Tom Brady, not so much.
Well, Brady didn't.
He did have Gronk.
But when you're looking at Patrick Mahomes when he had Tyreek Hill and Kelsey and the type of things they had in Andy Reid calling the plays. Look, I don't care what sport you're in. Michael Jordan didn't win championships until he got Scottie Pippen. One man can't do it alone. Brady didn't get a lot, but still, Gronk's going to the Hall of Fame. I mean, he had somebody. So, look, the arguments are dwindling as far as not giving him everything because when you look at all the numbers, which everybody seems obsessed with, he's got those. They have the team record. He's making the plays. And the more you watch, even the Seattle game, the numbers aren't impressive. What throw do you remember? Brandon Ayuk.
Yep.
Between 4 defenders. If you don't think that's a great throw, you just don't know the game. So he's knocking those things down as we go. But the bottom line to the thing is, if they run this table the rest of the way, and they are the number one seed in the NFC, I don't know what else you could say to vote against him because he will have beaten Dak and beaten Hurts and beaten Lamar Jackson. He will have hopefully played great in all those games. It's really difficult to not vote for him. But again, it's a number system and it's 50 people, and we don't even know who those people are.
Yeah, and that's it. You don't know who they are, and I still, I'm going to say, I don't think people still kind of believe in the kid. Yeah. I mean, I think here we believe in him because he's shown it, but I think, overall people still kind of waiting for him to fail.
People are, they're waiting for him to fail, but how long do you wait?
Well, it's the 262.
You can have a lucky season in sports. We've all seen, and I don't even like saying lucky. You can have a great season in sports. All things can click. It's the all-time greats and the Hall of Famers and the champions that are able to repeat that over and over and over, whether it's drive, whether it's ability, skill set, situation, no matter what it is, they're able to repeat it at a level of consistency that nobody else is able to match. So far, that's what we're seeing from Brock Purdy, is a level of consistency that no quarterback in football right now, Patrick Mahomes included, this season is putting together.
But I think that what you just said is exactly right. If you look at and this is where I think McCaffrey could get into it, to be honest, because Mahomes isn't having his normal season. Burrow is hurt. Josh Allen's not having his normal season. You look across where this thing is.
I got no qualms with McCaffrey being the MVP,
right,
by the way.
But nobody is really, and again, Tyreek Hill is going to say something about it because he's going to go over 2,000 receiving yards. So
that might be the one.
And the Dolphins right now sit in the 1 seed in the AFC. So that might be another one. But you're going to have to look at those three guys because nobody's having. Because at the beginning of the season, everyone just assumes Mahomes, or a lot of people were talking Burrow. Well, what's weird about Kansas City is their offense is kind of holding them back. Their defense is better than their offense. It's weird.
And it's not for Mahomes' fault, really. I mean, he's had a lot of drops, he's had a lot of problems. The defense is keeping him in it. I'm not writing them off yet because I keep thinking they're worse than they are. I look up, they still have 8 wins right now, right? Aren't they 8-5 or something coming in today?
Yeah. 8-4, something like
8-4, something. They're 8-4 coming in today, and they can pick up their 9th win. That means they're a game worse than the Niners are right now. They just haven't been the dominant Chiefs we're used to seeing.
And they could turn that at any.
It might be the best defense they've ever had, honestly, in the Mahomes era.
Yeah, for sure.
Is what I'm getting at here. So, Brock Purdy, by the way, in his career against Seattle in the regular season now 2-0 after the 2 Thursday night victories. This will be his 3rd regular season matchup in the 2 regular season games. Prior, he's 35 of 56, 67.8%, 426 yards passing, 3 touchdowns and a pick. So he has been fantastic. Again, both of those came on short weeks, right? So the kickoff coming your way at 1:05 today. Dennis, I just want to follow up on what you said about the Niners and where they stand in the pantheon of the NFC. I think even if they don't, because I think I asked you guys this last week, what's the harder road to lose one and be the 2 seed and then have to get through the playoffs and potentially go back to Philadelphia, or is it win out, get the bye, and be the 1 seed, but you're not losing the rest of the way? You've got to still run the table. What's the harder path? I think where I'm at now after last week's game, they're better equipped than any team in football to be the number 2 seed and run the table anyway.
I mean, it's to win out. I mean, that's the goal, right? I mean, one game at a time. You know, go 1-0 every week. And then you get that bye and you get that opportunity to, you know, the Super Bowl the opportunity for the Super Bowl goes through your home stadium. But, you know, it's late in the season and you know, you want to get into the playoffs and whatever seed it is, you know, you're a football player and you want to get into the playoffs. So at this point, I mean, you want to win out, be number one seed, but you want to be in the playoffs, an opportunity to kind of compete for a championship.
And they can clinch today in the playoffs. They can't clinch the NFC West. But by the way, that Rams-Ravens game, which has an effect, that's a wet game. Baltimore's down 3-0 in that game early on, and then we'll keep an eye on Detroit too, because even if Detroit wins, the Niners win, the Niners have a better conference record than the Lions, so they would automatically, if the Eagles lose, take that top seed in the NFC. I think the biggest advantage in all of sports is the number one seed in each conference because you're the only one who gets a week off. And in the NFL, again, Dennis, referring back to you, is you get a week off to lick your wounds and to take that week off, and everybody else has got to play. And then this year's going to be interesting because probably the loser in the NFC East, so either Dallas or Philadelphia, is going to come here because you're playing right now Atlanta from the NFC South. So that 5 seed, which is probably going to be Philly or Dallas.
Kind of like that. That's a little throwback.
Is going to play is going to play at Atlanta. They probably win that game, and then that's going to be the lowest remaining seed, and then they would play the 1 seed. So if they do win out, their first playoff game will either be Philly or Dallas.
That's hot Atlanta to you, John.
Yeah,
hot Atlanta. Philly or Dallas. Yeah, that would be
South is
that'd be a hell of a. Yeah, I don't know how we're going to let somebody get in out of that division. All right, more to come here. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund. Niners at 9-3, looking to take down the Seahawks, who are 6-6 and trying to cling on or hang on here to a playoff spot in the middle of a very crowded NFC wildcard picture. Our 49er insider, Matt Mayoko, is up in the broadcast booth. We will go up and check with him. No Eric Armstead today. Elijah Mitchell was dealing with a knee. Spencer Burford returned to the offensive line. We will talk a bit about that with Matt Mayoko, who joins us next. Niners, Seahawks, 105 kick, only here on the Sports Leader.
Yeah, no, I ain't no dirty player. I mean, I'm not a dirty player. I play by the rules. I mean, just because you tackle a little physical doesn't make you a dirty player. So
it is possible to just be a really aggressive guy who sometimes thinks, that line gets a little blurry sometimes.
Yeah, no, it definitely get blurry sometimes, especially, just the game and the emotions and everything. But I don't necessarily think it's dirty. I love it when I see a player that's just playing full of emotion and is ready to go out there and smack everything. Like, that's what it's going to turn me up too. So, I mean, I don't think it's been dirty.
As Dre Greenlaw, he's saying he's not a dirty player after that suplex of Devontae Smith on the sideline and the fracas. You would love it.
Oh, that was great. That was a great tackle.
You ever slam somebody down? You did
I did. I mean, that suplex. I don't know if it's legal.
Old days, though. You could do that.
No, that's you get you get a player that it's kind of standing up a little bit. You get a little angle on him, and you can flip him like that.
Plus, Devontae Smith is about $130. No, he's about $170.
It makes it a lot easier.
Let's get out to our 49ers insider, and he is a dirty player. That is Matt Mayoko, NBC Sports.
I think he's misunderstood.
49ers Talk podcast and super insider. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, before we get going, I just wanted to talk about something that happened about an hour ago. A really cool thing. People around the 49ers, of course, know Greg Knapp, longtime coach in the NFL. Began his coaching career with the 49ers. And 2 years ago, he was killed while cycling in San Ramon by a distracted driver. And since then, his wife, Charlotte, has started this movement to bring awareness to distracted driving. And as a father, as a person who at times isn't fully, 100% focused on the road, checking, text coming through or whatever. And us also as a father who has two young drivers, it's just a great cause. And so John Lynch, Keena Turner, some of the coaches were out here with Charlotte doing the Greg Knapp Memorial Stair Climb. It's a fundraiser to just bring awareness to something that I think is becoming more and more prevalent and more dangerous. So anybody who's interested, check out Knapp Memorial, that's KNAPP, knappmemorial.org for more information. But it's kind of a movement that's going on around the NFL. Everybody who knew Greg loved him, and teams have been doing it on a weekly basis here. So the 49ers had their opportunity, and John Lynch said, we passed the challenge on to the Seattle Seahawks. So next week in Seattle, the Seattle coaching staff and front office people will be doing the Greg Knapp Memorial Stair Climb. He used to do it like several hours before a game. Greg would be out there in the stadium running the stairs. So that's how this movement started. So it's a really great cause.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Matt. They were a great way to start this, and you have I think on numerous occasions talked about Greg Knapp and brought more awareness on my end to that. This is an awesome thing. Again, Knapp Memorial, KNAPP Memorial.org. I'll give it out to you again.
Awesome.
At the end of the hit, but awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Matt.
By the way, real quick, I knew Greg well through Greg Papa, we talked to him many times. Couple of Super Bowls that he was at and everything, and just a tremendous guy. And where that incident happened is right by my house, so this hits close to my heart. So I did see the video of everybody doing that at Levi Stadium today. So just to kind of echo what Adam said, thanks for bringing it up, because what a cool event.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Matt Mayoko with us. He's our 49er insider from NBC Sports Bay Area, and we have a lot of fun. That's great that we get to shine some light on something very cool and positive there. And Niners, again, Matt, we just did this a couple of weeks ago. Should we just replay that interview before Niners and Seahawks? I mean, I can say the same stuff. Brock Purdy's never lost to Seattle. Seattle's a little banged up. Geno Smith.
Just cross out the 2 and add a 3,
exactly.
And he's going for not the 3rd but the 4th. Hey, I would just also, while the stair climb was taking place on the field, Geno Smith was throwing, and frankly, I don't think he looked great. So I would be moderately surprised if he's active for this game, and if he is, I'm not sure that's a bad thing for the 49ers. I think, the Seahawks' best offense last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess it was from a pick six and a kickoff return. They couldn't get anything going offensively against the 49ers, and I just don't think that'll change today, whether it's Geno Smith or Drew Lock at quarterback. So I don't think the Seahawks are in a great position entering this game.
And, you know, talking about who's going to play quarterback, let's talk about this defensive line. Eric Armstead looks like he won't be playing today. Will we see Kevin Givens?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see. I would imagine Jauan Jennings will open as a starter. I kind of had a neat little experience in the locker room on Friday. Eric Armstead had been ruled out, and so I wanted to go talk to as many of those defensive tackles as I could, Kinlaw, Givens, and Clea Davis. And I walked over toward Clea Davis's locker, and he didn't see me coming, so don't read this into it, but he kind of walked away from me, and then he turned the corner, and I kind of followed him over there, and it ended up that Kinlaw, Givens, and Davis were all together. So I was able to hey, these are the three guys I want to talk to. You know, let's just have this little group chat here, an in-person group chat. So I sat around, I stood around and talked to the three of them in unison, and they all pretty much said the same thing, you know, about, you know, they're well prepared. They know that not one of them is going to pick up the slack for Eric. It's going to have to be a team effort, and they seem just really confident of their ability to step in there. Remember now, last week Clea Davis suited up for his first ever NFL game, and he got a sack, and that's something that Kinlaw pointed out, wow, that's a pretty good percentage, you know. If he had only been playing this entire season, he'd have a team leading 12 sacks. So,
he needs to come up with a new dance, though. He stole Armstead.
Well,
what was that?
I think that was kind of an homage. Yeah, an homage. And did you notice after he did it, Brock Purdy got the biggest kick out of it. He started doing it on the sideline too.
They get in my belly.
Yeah.
They're a tight knit group.
Get in my belly. Yeah. I'm gonna eat. Yeah.
Wow.
I need that good sound.
Very nice.
So anyway, I think those three guys will each see a lot of playing time. And Kinlaw is playing better. You know, early on, I just didn't know if he could even play the run. You know, that if his leverage and all that for such a big guy. But it looks like he's playing the best football of his career. He had the 2 sacks last week, and I don't say just because he had the 2 sacks. I think he's been a much better player. So, you know, at this point in the season, the goal for the team is to get Armstead healthy and ready for the postseason, and they have to trust that the three guys stepping in, Kinlaw, Givens, and Davis, can really pick up the slack and not have a drop off at that spot.
You know, one of the bigger stories was obviously what Ward did to Metcalf in shadowing him and basically shut him down. And then last week, DK was great against Dallas, including that 73-yarder, and it looked like a much different I was talking to a Seattle guy, and I called it desperate. He called it, you know, sense of urgency, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But to me, we can talk all about the defensive line, but it's marrying the secondary to the defensive line, and they did such a good job of staying disciplined to keep Jalen Hurts inside. But if you can't perform that defense they did last week unless you can plaster the way they did in the secondary. And so give it up to Ambry Thomas, Ward again. They're really I'm not going to say they don't miss a funga because I'm sure they did, but outside of that slant where Brown took a bad angle, I mean, that secondary is really playing well with that defensive line.
Yeah, and, you know, last week, what they did against the Eagles, I don't think they can do that against any other team in the league. And it's not necessarily, you know, a compliment to Jalen Hurts. You know, talking to Nick Bosa, who's quite upfront about what the 49ers game plan was, He says it was a very Jalen Hurts specific game plan because Hurts takes his eyes off of his receiver so quickly and focuses in on the pass rush, and that's why, you know, he was holding the ball so long. And the 49ers really did not focus in on just selling out and let's get the sack. It was almost, Dennis, didn't it almost look like a 2-gap pass rush that each 49er lineman was using? Like it was almost like just kind of go bull rush and just keep your eyes on the quarterback and just make sure that if he starts to run, you can shed and cover either of the gaps which is something you don't see very often as a pass rusher because those guys want the numbers and they're just going to try to penetrate and maybe leave an opening for, you know, leave an escape hatch for the quarterback. But the 49ers were coached up very well last week to not do that. So I don't think there will be much of a running threat from the Seahawks this game. regardless of who the quarterback is. So don't look for that same sort of thing. They will try to get after, and a guy like Bosa will try to compensate for some of the sacks he didn't put himself in position for last week by getting to whomever the quarterback is, whether it's Geno Smith or Locke, or heck, even if it's Sean Mannion.
Yeah, and you're right. It reminds me of the rush. We used to rush. It was Atlanta used to have that run and shoot when they came out, and the pass rush was always 2 yards up the field, a bull rush, kind of stay down the middle of your offensive lineman, and then it's kind of a spy because the quarterback is someone who can make plays down the football field. He wants to scramble a little bit.
Spies, right?
Yeah, four spies. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And it's tough to do because you got to stay disciplined, and you have to have such sticky coverage in the back on the back end.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like Bosa told me that they knew, like the secondary knew where the first read was. So as long as they plastered, and kind of took away that first read, they felt like it was going to be their day against the Eagles, and it certainly was. I mean, I didn't know what I was watching for the first quarter and a half of that game. Like, okay, how can Jalen Hurts have that much time to throw? That must be an issue with the defensive line, but it wasn't. It was exactly how they wanted to play it. And if you notice, most of the times when a guy's back there for 10 seconds, only a slight exaggeration there, by the way, but if a guy's back there for 10 seconds, usually that something pops open, but it never did for the Eagles. Their best plays were when he got the ball out quickly. And there was that one, I guess the one slant play where Tashawn Gibson and Jair Brown, either one of them should have had the tackle, but because they both arrived at the same time, they kind of knocked each other off, and it turned into a big play. But that's where the 49ers needed to do a better job, was just allow the stuff underneath, but then tackle quickly and don't allow it to turn into a 38-yard gain.
I'm talking to Matt Mayoko here from the broadcast booth ahead of the 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ Dennis Brown, and John Lund hanging out with you here. I want to ask you about the tight end situation. Ross Dwelly banged up, and I know that Zach Ertz is out there. There were some reports that maybe he was waiting to until the offseason or until next season to figure out where he wanted to go next. Is there a chance the Niners get aggressive and try to make sure he ends up here?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe something today could change that, but I don't get that sense that they're beating down the door or anything for him. I think there are other teams. I think the Ravens would be a team that probably would set up better for him, and then of course having the background with the Eagles, probably them. I'm actually kind of surprised that it hasn't happened yet, but I think I'd put, I certainly wouldn't rule anything out, but I think I'd put the 49ers a little bit down the list of where it makes the most sense for him and for the team.
In terms of being around this team this week, look, I think they're going to beat Seattle either way, and I'm not a big Drew Lock guy. I think he's really going to struggle against this defense, but they had that game circled for, since January 14th. Is there the potential for a letdown today against Seattle?
You would think because of this team, no, but maybe just kind of human nature allows it. And I don't know if it'd be a letdown, but it's just really tough to play your top game 2 weeks in a row. But that's something that was kind of hammered home to them, and it's something that Fred Warner brought up too, was that, hey, the last time we felt good about ourselves after beating an NFC East team, everybody knows what happened. 49ers went on a 3-game losing streak. But this is Seattle, so if you can't get up for Seattle, I know they just played them and beat them by 18 points, but this is a big division game. And I think a lot of times when those letdowns happen, it's against a team maybe out of division where you don't have the familiar you don't know exactly what you're going up against, but you see them on paper and like, oh, they're not that good of a team. I don't think the 49ers feel that way against Seattle. I think that even though everybody here believes that the 49ers are clearly the better team, I can guarantee you, like, Charvarius Ward is not taking this game lightly. Guys who are going up against top flight players, anyone who has to block Bobby Wagner is not taking this game lightly. The wide receivers going up against Witherspoon and Woolen, they're not taking this lightly. So I don't know. I don't think so, but you never know. I mean, I thought the same thing because it's 49ers are a very mature locker room, and they kind of were saying the same things after the Dallas game, like, well, they haven't accomplished anything yet. And then they lose 3. So I guess we'll find out soon enough. We'll find out in whatever 2.5 hours, see how this game's going, about how they're ready to go. But I just, especially coming home, there's going to be some energy here in the stadium.
It's been a while since we've seen them, it feels like.
It does seem that way.
Because the Thursday night game in Seattle just seems like it's been a long time since. And because the bye.
Tampa game, I guess, was the last one. But yeah, it does seem like a while. So I don't know. I think that the whatever juice they might be lacking will kind of take care of itself, or at least the crowd will take care of it for them a little bit.
By the way, I know we may have taken you away from your videographer duties when the guys walk in. Javon Kinlaw wearing an Eric Armstead 91 Niners jersey today.
Get in my belly.
Very
cool.
See? Like you said, homage.
It all comes together.
It all does. Very nice.
And by the way, I promise we'd circle back on it, Matty, just because you opened the segment talking about it. NapMemorial.org. NapMemorial.org if you want to get more involved in the stair climb and the awareness that we're doing in honor of the passing of Greg Knapp and carrying his legacy on through the NFL, because he's impacted a lot of people, and it sounds like he is still impacting people. Knapp, KNAPP, memorial.org, Matt.
Awesome.
Great deal, man.
Thanks,
Have a great
Coach.
time, and we'll see you upstairs,
guys.
dude.
I appreciate it. Okay, take care.
Great stuff, as always, from our guy, Matt Mayoko, who just checked in. Or actually, a couple of guys just checked in on our YouTube chat. We are streaming on YouTube and twitch.tv/thesportsleader, always on the pregame and the postgame show here on the 49ers Countdown to Kickoff. Luke checks in. He just goes, "Morning, Matty Ice. Just want to say what's up to Matt." So putting that out there. And nobody, by the way, committed to the Matthew like our guy Dennis Brown. Nobody is committed to Matthew with Matt Mayoko stronger than Dennis. There's a commitment to excellence, and there's a commitment to Matthew. That's what Dennis is rolling with. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lund. More to come here. Let's get you the game plan for this one. Our favorite sponsor coming right up on the Building the Game Plan segment. We'll let you know what the Niners have to do, what the Seahawks have to do to keep pace with this Niner offense. Will still become a player to bank on, our 49er player spotlight, and our honorary captain ahead of Week 14. Niners and Seahawks all coming up on the Sports Leader.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing about this league is like you go through such high emotions, and last week beating Philly, and then literally 2 days later you have to completely wash it and focus on to the next game. So we know what happened last time. We beat an NFC East team pretty good, and we obviously are aware of that. We have a tough opponent in Seattle. We know what they bring every single time we play them. The score obviously was what it was last game when we played them on Thanksgiving, but it's always a tight game all the way through, and then what happened, but it's always tight throughout those beginning parts of the game. They're going to get some guys back who were not healthy the last time around, and we have to make sure we're dialed and focused today. Philly's gone and is done and over with. We're not talking about Philly from here on out. We're on to Seattle.
What do you think having a 37-year-old?
We're on to Cincinnati.
Nicely done. Nice work there from Danny back in the studio. Thanks for the work today, dude. Thanks to everybody who's checking in as well on the YouTube chat and twitch.tv/thesportsleader. We still got a couple of hours here until game time. We do have plenty of games underway right now in the NFL. We'll get you some of the scores in just a few minutes. By the way, on the YouTube chat, Dennis, somebody checks in here. It's our guy, RTPFTW is his name here. And he goes, "Hey, Dennis, as a Matthew myself, I feel you. And I appreciate you going with the Matt or the Matthew. Because a lot of guys go Matt. A lot of guys go Matty. Hey, Matty Mayo. I feel like Matt Barrows is more of a Matty. Mayoko, I go Matt, but you go with a Matthew.
I go with a Matthew. I don't know. He just seems not like a Matt or Matty. He just seems like a Matthew.
We could go Greg Pop and just call him, "Hey, Johnny." I don't think he ever calls him that. But for some reason, whenever I do my Pop impression, I call you Johnny. I just think it's funny. I don't think anybody ever calls you Johnny.
My grandma.
Hey,
I got on her about it, too. Hey, Johnny, that's not what her name is.
Not my name, Grandma.
Grandma would get mad at me.
No, Grandma, I didn't get the job.
No, I didn't yell at my grandma.
I just hate him. No, it's John Lund. If anybody here in the room would yell at their grandma, it's John, though. Because Dennis and I know better.
Yeah.
I would have kind of whooping for yelling at grandma. Let's get you the building the game plan segment here for the Niners and the Seattle Seahawks. By the way, that was Fred Warner you heard coming in there talking about the dangerous team that is Seattle, and you know what they're going to bring. Was that Fred Warner or was that Brock Purdy? Was it Brock Purdy giving Fred Warner media training? He was like verbatim, word for word.
Nothing for the bulletin board. Nothing for the bulletin board.
Nothing for the grease board. Time for Building the Game Plan, sponsored by Golden State. When you succeed, we succeed. Visit us today at goldenstatelumber.com and, of course, by River Islands. Come home to River Islands in Lathrop and discover the San Joaquin River lifestyle with its lakes, parks, and schools. Start your tour today at riverislands.com.
It was for me.
Yes, it was, Marty. So, for Dennis, I'm going to start with you. When you see a team like this, it seems like it's not infrequent that this happens. It seems like it happens more and more frequently now, where you see a team twice in 3 weeks. If you saw a team 2 weeks ago, and it's a division team, when that happens, if it does ever happen, it's a divisional opponent, or it's an out-of-division opponent that you're seeing like week 17 or 18, then again in the postseason. Seeing it in the playoffs is different. The Seahawks are a little bit more desperate here than the Niners. The Niners are certainly playing for something and wanting to make sure they control their own destiny if, in fact, Philadelphia loses today. What changes in a game plan for the defense going up against an offense that you saw 2 weeks ago?
I don't think anything changes. I mean, this is a team that you play, every year, twice. And you've got the roadmap now on how to beat a Seattle team. You get after them. You make them one-dimensional. Then you get after the quarterback. I mean, I don't think anything changes. I mean, you attack this game the same way. I mean, you got a running back that didn't play the first game. You shut him down. You play sticky coverage on the back end. You know what you got. You got Lockett. You got DK. You got to have sticky coverage against them, and then you get after the quarterback. So I don't think anything changes. This is a team that you know. I mean, there's no questions. Like I said, there might be some things that Pete Carroll throws in there, but you know this football team. You know how to play this football team. And the most important part, you know how to beat this football team, so you do the same thing.
The only difference from 2 weeks ago, Abe Lucas, number 72, is going to be their right tackle. I think he's their best offensive lineman. Ken Walker III, as much as running the ball, and he runs hard, he's very good in the screen game. Outside of that, they're going to probably try to get DK Metcalf involved earlier because, like many receivers in this league, if you get DK involved early, he'll be much more into the game. That's what they did against Dallas last week. Tyler Lockett, I think, is injured. And then the one guy to watch, Jackson Smith and Jigba, the rookie out of Ohio State, is just getting better and better and better. But no matter what, if Geno Smith doesn't play, and he was out on the field earlier today, he didn't look real well. Right now, I'm looking at video of Drew Lock warming up with Sean Mannion, who was a guy that they elevated. And that can kind of give you a thought on whether Geno's going to play because they signed Sean Mannion this week. Of course, Foothill High School Sean Mannion. And
was that in Pleasanton?
Yeah, in Pleasanton, where many of the people out front are.
We were just talking Pleasanton.
Yeah, we just were. And so that kind of gives you maybe an indicator that Geno is not going to play because A, he didn't look great, and B, they did elevate Sean Mannion to the active roster for Seattle.
Shout out Foothill High School, by the way. Homer Brandon Crawford. And is Mannion a Foothill or is he I am a dork high school?
He's a Foothill guy.
Because Amador is, you put the I and the K in the front and the back here. I'm a dork. I run with my Foothill fam out there. Shout out Amador Valley High School as well. Yeah, so Matt Mayoko did just tell us, Matthew Mayoko, our 49ers insider.
You can't call him that. It sounds weird.
Well, I'm doing it out of respect. It does sound real weird. He told us he thinks it's unlikely that Geno Smith is able to go today, and he said, honestly, I don't think that would be I think he said if he does play and they try to have him go, that wouldn't be the worst thing for the Niners. Probably a good thing if it's Drew Lock as well. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, and John Lund with you here. Niners and the Seahawks. We are just over 2 hours away from kickoff at 12:05. We'll throw it over to Tim and Greg, who will take you up to kick and through the football game, and then we'll be back with you for the postgame show. But when we come on back, a little bit more to get to ahead of this one. We had an interview with Kyle Shanahan earlier this week, myself and Tom Tolbert. We'll play that for you next, only here on the Sports Leader.
No, I can honestly say no. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the funnest teams I've been a part of, and I think what makes it fun is how hard everybody works. and the standard is so high, and it gives you confidence when you know that your brother next to you is doing everything he can to be the best version of himself, and it makes it fun coming into work every day and knowing the challenges we have ahead of us and knowing the guys that are next to you who are going to approach those challenges.
Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you here ahead of Niners and the Seahawks. Week 14. There was Christian McCaffrey there talking about if he's asked whether or not he's ever had more fun playing football. Guy got to 1,000 yards last week on the ground, by the way. He could be well over 20 touchdowns. See if he tops Jerry's 22, albeit not in 12 games. As the Niners enter game 13 here in week 14, looking to pick up their 10th win. They can clinch a playoff berth today, but not quite clinch the division until next week. If they get a Rams loss today, and then a win next week. We'll get you the player to bank on in just a bit, but the head coach of the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, joins myself and Tom Tolbert each and every week throughout the football season, and we opened up the interview this week talking to Coach, one, about the big win against the Philadelphia Eagles, but two, about how good it must feel to dominate a performance like they had last week.
Man, goodness, that was about as dominant a performance as I've seen since I could only go back to Dallas.
Yeah,
it was like I could go back further.
2 weeks ago. Right.
My goodness, that was offensively, defensively. That must have been fun to watch the guys play the way they did.
No, it was fun, but I make sure it ends for myself because I had a lot of fun on it Sunday night. It's always fun to come in the morning for Victory Monday. So it's a lot more fun coming in than after a loss.
Yes.
But and it was exciting, especially the way last year ended. So I know that was a big deal for not just our team, but all our fans, for everybody who watched that. But I woke up Tuesday morning and my wife still acted like it was Victory Tuesday, and I had to snap at her and remind her the last time that she felt this good, and she quickly got miserable like me, and we realized, all right, that's over. It's not going to last unless we get a win this week, so Don't enjoy it too long.
It's like the people nowadays, Coach. It's like, oh, it's my birthday weekend. Like, well, no. You have a birthday. Yeah. That's it, the birthday, and that's all you get. And then people try to extend it out into like birthday weeks now. It's like, what are we doing?
That's my month.
What are we doing here?
I don't think so.
Enjoy
my
it
kids
one day.
Keep trying to do that too. It's unbelievable. That's what's so fun about the Thursday night game, like versus Seattle, because if you win, you actually can enjoy a win for once for 3 days.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Anytime you do that in a normal week, that's the kiss of death.
Yeah, exactly. That's pro sports, man. You got to keep on moving, because if you don't, you're going to get caught. There's no doubt about that. What was the first quarter was interesting, because I don't know how it felt to you. It felt like you guys were down 21-0 at the end of the first quarter, but it was 6-0. Was that something you had to remind yourself, the players, like, look, it feels bad, but it's only 6-0, and then sure enough, you guys were right back in the game, started the second.
Oh, it definitely felt that way, because that's the way it looked like it should have been. And that's what, they were moving the ball like they were scoring touchdowns, but we were able to get them off on third down in the red zone, so it led to field goals, and that was huge. And then our third drive, our first 2 drives are 3 and out, and then our third drive, we're sitting there at 2nd and 18. So that's not feeling very good. But we threw a quick out to BA, and it probably would have been about an 8-yard gain, but he lowered his shoulder and picked up 4 more and got us to a manageable third down. I think it was 3rd and 3 to 5, I can't remember, but Brock had to go all the way across the board, and he hit Kittle, kind of diving at his legs, and barely got the first down. And then after that, it was all right. Then it felt like the game started, but up to that point, it was about as rough as it could go. And fortunately, we weathered the storm with holding them to field goals, and we were able to get on track and had a lot of fun the rest of the game.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the key big plays of the game, the throw to Kittle, because that was not an on-time thing. That was, he had to move across the field, find Kittle, and then the defense was right there. He just made the throw in the nice spot, kind of low, and Kittle cradled it. But, it seemed like a big play at the time, and then it went on to kind of the floodgates open, and as you said, the offense got started. So, while, in the box score, it won't seem like much of a play, that seemed like one of the kind of the bigger plays of the game.
Well, that's that's to me almost how the whole game went, because people don't realize how those are the big plays, but it's the play before those plays too. I mean, just the little quick out to BA on 2nd and 18 that gets 15 yards, and that's what allows George to be a big play. And the one that Debo took to the house over the middle. I mean, that play's not happening if we don't hit a huge 3rd and 9 a couple plays before that to Ayuk on the sidelines for some tight man-to-man coverage. And the reverse that we hit to Debo, I want to say for his second score, I think it was. But the play before that was a big 3rd and 7 where we hit Christian on that wheel route down the sidelines. And so those were big-time 3rd down plays. And you stay on the field, then you get to kind of just continue with the offense, and eventually one of the guys makes a huge play. But I think that was the biggest thing in that game. How do you get 6 drives in a row with touchdowns? It's going 8 of 11 on 3rd down. It's staying out on the field, and all you need to do is get off the field once. And they kind of moved it like that their first 2 drives, but we got them off the field on 3rd down in the red zone, so they only had 6 points to show for it. And that's why it's such a fine line between winning or losing a game, or it being a blowout on either side of the ball. And that's why this league can be so tough, and every play is so important.
The throw to Christian was kind of funny because when he threw it, it was just weird. I don't know if it was a camera angle, Kyle, that we got on TV, but when he threw it, I went, ooh, because it looked like it was going to sail right out of bounds, and then it just dropped right into his mitts. I was like, oh, I guess not to worry.
Then the TV angle must be the same as my angle, because I felt the exact same way. Because I watched Christian to see whether he's going to go in or run down the sideline, and I see the leverage on him, and right when he takes it, I'm like, oh, we got him. And I look up in the air, and the ball's almost already there. And I'm like, oh, there's no way that this isn't overthrown. But it was a perfect throw. So it was just like, oh, I guess that's what a perfect throw feels like, because I definitely thought it was overthrown, and it hit him right in stride and got us a huge explosive, and then Debo was able to score the next play.
Talking to 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan. We do it every week of the NFL season. Niners and the Seahawks from Levi Stadium this weekend. I'm wondering, because it feels like, and I mean, you guys, we talked about the first quarter, and Brock, I think you started 0 for 4 and then went like 19 of 23 or something to finish the game. It feels, even watching the game, in moments like that where you're scoring 6 straight touchdowns, like there's a rhythm to the offense and it's humming. And I think we've asked you before about being in concert with your quarterback and the offense being in rhythm. Can that happen game to game? Like, can you have a great season as a head coach and a play caller? Is that something you feel ever?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with your players. It's when your guys are doing good, you always feel good as a coach. I mean, when you're struggling, you feel bad as a coach. So it's when your guys are healthy and you got a lot of talent, you always seem to do a little bit better as a coach. So that's why you never try to put too big of, or get too excited or too down about much stuff from the coaching perspective. You get it's these guys making these plays, and you're just trying to put them in the position for that. And our guys have, rhythm is a big thing, and it's when you have good players like that, you always feel it's a matter of time. And there's such a big deal's made of those first 6 plays, which we feel the same too. But that's what's so big about a tip ball. That's what's so big about a penalty. That's so big about one negative run. All those things are the things that can take you out of your rhythm. That's why when you get, what do you want to do when it's 2nd and 10? Do you want to run the ball and get to a manageable 3rd down? Well, what if it's a negative run? You're in 3rd and 12, and that's almost a punt 90% of the time. So let's try to throw and get half of it. Well, what if you take a sack? The drive's over. And so all those things go into it, and that's why there's a risk reward to everything. When to take your shots, when to just try to stay in rhythm and just stay on track. Do you need to take that shot? Is that the only way you can score? Can you just methodically do it because you just feel you're better in what you're doing at running the ball and things like that? So it changes week to week. It changes drive to drive, and that's why each week is different. Some games are going to be great, and you can go against someone the next week, and you're just trying to win 3-0. Yep. So we'll see what happens.
I thought, and this may be hyperbole, but I thought based on who you were playing, Jalen Hurts, that was one of the defensive line's best performances, maybe in a couple years, because it seems like they have a tendency to get upfield, open up running lanes, and all of a sudden it's like guys, instead of like staying in their lanes, or getting outside their lanes, maybe going for sacks, or maybe doing a spin move, and all of a sudden they get outside the lane. The first half, maybe even the whole game, I guess, it was just beautiful the way they rushed, all pushed, all stayed in their lanes, and really just kind of bracketed him and kept him in the pocket and didn't let him escape and hurt you guys with his legs.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought it was their best game, and mainly they've had so many good games.
Yeah.
But this one was different because exactly what you're saying. It just completely goes against their DNA. That's not the way we like to play. We want to attack that quarterback every play. I know pass rushers do. I know our D-line coach does. That's the style, and that's how we do it. But when you do go against some certain quarterbacks and kind of what makes them successful, sometimes you got to adjust what you're doing, and we had to do that, which those guys don't enjoy that at all, but they understood why, and it was really cool to watch all game just how committed to it they were, especially the whole group was, but you look at a guy like Nick, who's everyone, he's a defensive MVP. Mm-hmm. He's expected to take over games and stuff, and sometimes it's hard because they want to take it over. But when I watched Nick that whole game and I get on the plane, it was the most unselfish pass rushing I'd ever seen, and because he didn't. He just bull rushed the guy, always took the B gap and would never let him escape that way. And so he'd have to go backwards and buy more time. And then we were able to chase him out there. And same with our looping threes and stuff. We're able to run him to the sidelines. And then you got to plaster and have the good coverage so he doesn't find those open lanes after that. But it was just such a commitment for the guys that sometimes can be frustrating because, as we say, it feels like he's sitting back there baking a cake. But as long as he's not running forward, that's a good thing. And he can sit back there forever. And if no one's open, they either throw it away or sometimes you can get the sack. And we got a couple sacks there where I felt he held on to it for an extremely long time.
And it sort of feels that way, Kyle, like the way the stat lines are showing up at the end of games. Like, yeah, Nick's gotten his, and it seems like a bunch of guys are getting a half a sack here, a half a sack there, a sack there. And it seems like that's the unselfish play, is that they're moving pockets, they're containing, and they're doing what they have to do to get to the quarterback. I mean, you guys have what? I think it's like 18 or something in the last 4 games.
Yeah, our guys, they've been really swarming with all 4 of them. And when you can get guys off the spot and all those guys are working, it leads to much better results. And I think we've really stepped that up since our bye week. And I also think our coverages, just the disguises, the soundness of just 3 deep and our quarters coverages and what we do. And then when Steve is aggressive and chooses the right time to take his shots, when to blitz and things like that, I think we've been able to keep guys off balance, and I feel like our guys have getting better. And that's what you want guys to do, especially going into December and January. You want to make sure you're better at this time than you were earlier in the year.
Let me ask you about, we'll get into the whole Dre Greenlaw thing, but I knew that, at least I don't want to, yeah, I did. I knew they were going to give him a 15-yarder because when you suplex a guy onto the field, they're going to give you a 15-yard penalty. I mean, that's just, that's the way it goes. How do you deal with that? Is it like that's who he is and that's what he does to be ready to play? Because there have been other instances where maybe it's a hit out of bounds or maybe it's something that crossed the line a little bit that leaves you guys maybe in a 15-yard hole. This time it actually was an ejection, which I disagree with, but we'll get into that. But is that something you just like, that's what makes him who he is? Or do you try to say, we want you to be who you are, but some of the other stuff can hurt us?
Oh, no, we don't ever just let it go. It's, I want our players to be as physical as they possibly can, but I don't ever want to get a penalty.
Yeah.
And you get a 15-yard penalty, let alone an ejection, you're hurting the team. Yeah. And that's every time you get a penalty, we go over it. We go over the why, how it happened. I've been places before where someone gets a 15-yard penalty and it's like, oh, that was worth it. It set the tone. That's not at all how we roll here. We think you can play a certain way and never do that. And it takes a special type of guy because you have to be very aggressive and physical, but you can't just be completely blacked out and going crazy. Yeah. And I think Dre is as good as anyone at that fine line. And even if you watch his suplex there, watch how he ends that. If Dre wants to slam a person, he can slam somebody. And that it happened to be a lighter receiver, one of the lighter ones, and he's trying to get him down. He's 3 yards in bounds, and he did lift him up. But as he's about to slam him, he doesn't take him into the ground. He tries to let off. Okay. Now, Dre, you can't pick those guys up at all. You just hold them there and let someone else come hit them, or let someone else come take the ball. I'd rather that happen. Yeah. You're not allowed to slam a guy and stuff like that. But and that got too close. And if it does get close at all, you are going to get called. Yeah. And that is where we try to improve with Dre with, and that's the stuff he is really committed to improving on. So he's not one who's going to fight us on that. He'll understand that right after the game. Be like, man, I didn't think I was, and that's why I tried to let up at the end. Yep. And I was like, yeah, but it's too close, man. And you got that 15. And then, I didn't agree with the Jackson at all. Yeah. But bottom line is you did get ejected. So what do we have to do? Well, Kyle, I didn't throw a punt. It was this. It was like, right. Well, but you got ejected. So what do you got to do? I just got to get the heck away from it. Yeah, exactly. That's what you got to do. And and I think he will get better at that. But one thing I don't ever want to take away from Dre is how he plays, because Dre is, I think he's one of the best linebackers in this league. He inspires our whole team how he plays. The physicalness he plays with and the character of that dude is, he's got as high of character as anyone I've ever been around. So I don't doubt anything with that person, and we just got to find a way to keep him playing at that level and avoid hurting the team with penalties, which I personally think he's done a pretty good job on. That one was just kind of put in the spotlight there.
Kyle, we always appreciate the conversation. Congratulations on the win and best of luck against the Seahawks this weekend, man.
All right, guys. Thanks.
There you go. There's Kyle Shanahan weekly with Tolbert and Copes right here on the Sports Center. Time for your player to bank on as we get you ready for the Seahawks and the 49ers from Levi's Stadium. Brought to us by our good friends at Casino Matrix. Just drop in for gaming, dining, sports. Please gamble responsibly. Of course you do. 1-800-GAMBLER and the player to bank on. Also brought to us by 5 Star Bank. Learn more at 5starbank.com. Who do you think is the player to bank on today against the Seahawks?
Well, I mean, it's as you say, it's low hanging fruit, but Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
I mean, he's a guy. I mean, talking about consistency. I mean, even the games that the 49ers kind of lost. I mean, he's always been consistent. This run game's been consistent. We all know if the run game is on, this 49er team wins football games. But he's incredible the way he runs, his vision. One step cut down the field, and the way he can kind of avoid tackles and break tackles. So it's got to be Christian McCaffrey.
Last time out 2 weeks ago against Seattle, 114 yards rushing and 25 through the air. He had 24 touches, and the 49ers beat the Seahawks 31-13, and that is your player to bank on. Still lots to come. We got an hour to get you to Tim and Greg. We'll go up to the booth. We'll get you the latest on injuries as well, including if Geno Smith is going to play for the Seahawks or is it going to be Drew Lock. We'll give you all that next from Levi's Stadium. Getting ready for kickoff between the 49ers and the Seahawks, only here on the Sports Leader.
But now they got to win this week. You know,
Yeah.
This was a big, big emotional win on the road. They were pointing to this game probably from the moment the schedule came out, given what happened a year ago in the NFC Championship game. Now you can't have the letdown. They're playing a division opponent who's fighting for their playoff lives. They cannot have a letdown on Sunday.
Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, and John Lund with you here ahead of Week 14 still Niners and the Seahawks. And we've got several games underway, and one that we're paying fairly close attention to. That Ravens and Rams game is a whole lot of fun right now, and I'm paying close attention to it because the Ravens are not yet covering the 7 points that I laid. So a little different intrigue and interest on my end there. Let's go to some of the scoreboard here, and I should let you know, we are going to talk to our honorary captain today, Teo Spikes. How about that? Teo Spikes is going to come by in about 10 minutes. We'll check in with him. He knows a little something about laying some wood and linebacking and a little bit about this Seattle team as well. But first, what's going on across the NFL in Week 14? We're at half in Atlanta and Tampa Bay. That's been kind of a wild one. 12-10 is the score right now. Tampa Bay on top at the half in the battle for who's going to be the worst team to make the postseason in the NFL this year. Could it be Tampa? Could it be Atlanta? I'm guessing it won't be Carolina, who is in action right now as well. Right now, the Rams in the second quarter, 2:54 to play. They have the ball, and they are at Baltimore. They're up 17-14. Rams are playing okay. They're not playing great defense, but the offense is moving it pretty well. Detroit was down 10-0 early in the game to the Bears. They've now come all the way back. They're up 13-10 now at halftime in that NFC North tilt. The Lions are looking for their 10th win of the year. John, how in play is the number one seed still for Detroit, you think?
They can do it. They're 9-3, but
nobody's
right now,
talking about it. But they're
and they haven't played great lately, and they were down 10-0 to Chicago, and now they're up. But they're 9-3, same as the 49ers. I don't think people are talking about them because the last couple of weeks they've struggled. Even if the 49ers win today, they stay ahead of the Lions because of divisional record. Because of conference record. So they're obviously not in the same division, but because of conference record, if the 49ers win, the Lions win, the what's the other 9-3? Oh, Dallas, obviously, over Philadelphia. All those teams would be tied, but the 49ers would be at top. They beat Dallas, they beat Philly, and they'd have a better conference record than Detroit.
Yeah, and you know, I just Detroit doesn't have a very hard schedule to finish.
Real easy.
Yeah, so I mean, they're going to be in a hundred. It sounds weird we're talking about Detroit when you talk about the playoffs, but they've kind of found their stride. They found their stride a little bit. You know, the quarterback's playing really well. They're playing good defense. They're down right now, but I just saw a sack. So, they're coming back, and, they're still in the hunt for sure.
Cleveland is at home taking on Jacksonville. Cleveland, by the way, cut my guy, Madam P.J. Walker. They cut him.
It's unbelievable that he.
That's actually the hardest laugh I think I've ever gotten on air for that bit. See, Dennis finally came around.
I keep remembering it. And I think a lot of people understand
where
it comes from. I mean, that's a little history. You should give the history on that a little bit.
Madam C.J. Walker, of course, the first African American woman millionaire, I believe, in the United States.
And it wasn't Oprah. See, a lot of people think it was Oprah.
No, it wasn't. Oprah. She's the first woman to own. I don't even know, dude. Everything to own half the world. Exactly. P.J. Walker, the first quarterback to beat the 49ers this season. He's now been cut. He is no longer playing for the Browns. The Browns, though, up 14-7. They got 7 wins. They're looking to, how about this? They get a win. They're going to match over Jacksonville here. Jacksonville falls to 8-5. Cleveland moves to 8-5. Pretty incredible as Trevor Lawrence playing with that hurt ankle, but trying to bring his team back. Carolina trailing New Orleans 14-3 now with 43 seconds remaining in the first half. We are at halftime in Houston at the Jets. Who saw this score coming? 0-0 at the half. Houston at the Jets. It was sort of crummy weather. What a disaster.
Freezing your butt off in New York, watching it at 0-0.
At least we get some C.J. Stroud. By the way, if the Jets played a road game all year, it feels like the Jets are at home every damn week. Still to come this afternoon, Minnesota is going to be at Vegas as the Raiders look to get to 6-7. Minnesota's trying to stay alive. They're at 500 in a very crowded NFC playoff picture, wild card playoff picture. The Niners, of course, at 9-3. 105 coming your way against Seattle, who's 6-6. They need to stay alive, so they're a little desperate today. The Chargers taking on the Denver Broncos. It's a crazy AFC West matchup. The Broncos can get back to 7-6, and then, of course, Buffalo at Kansas City. And then the nightcap is going to be Dallas, Philadelphia. We do have 2 Monday night games. We'll talk about those later because we're going to be joined momentarily here by our honorary captain today, Week 14 Niners and the Seahawks, Teo Spikes, is going to join us here in the studio when we come on back. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lund. Niners looking to clinch a playoff berth. They can clinch the division next week with a win over Arizona, but it all starts today with Seattle. It's coming your way on the Sports Leader.
If the San Francisco 49ers are healthy, there is not a team that should be able to beat them this season. The defense showed up, put a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts. They were out there hitting. Then you got Glock Purdy, 4 touchdowns, 148 passer rating. Brandon Ayuk, but Deebo Samuel, he talked a lot in the offseason. He said a lot of things in the offseason. He said these guys were trash. If we had our quarterback, we would have blown y'all out. Well, they had their quarterback, and they blew him out. This team is just complete. I can't see a weakness right now.
Who was that? Was that Sherm?
That was Sherm.
Talking.
You couldn't tell?
It was talking.
Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lund here with you ahead of Niners and the Seahawks. Week 14 here, and we are joined by our honorary captain. Teo Spikes joins us here in studio. What's going on, Teo?
Man, I am excited to be back in the Bay.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could have played in this new stadium. Wish I could have.
Really?
Oh, my
Or
goodness.
you look like you could. You look good.
Well, that's two things.
Yeah.
But if you pull up the hood, you'll see the guts and the wrenches and all of that ain't what it
It's
used
like a
to be.
Jaguar, right? Looks really good. Then you open the hood.
You got one more snap at least.
Absolutely.
All right.
Because that comes with one more snap of paycheck.
That's what I'm saying.
Sign me up.
Yep. People always say to me, Dennis, can you still do it? I say, I can do it 1 snap, 1 game check. I'm good. I'm good to go. So, that's the way it is, though. We appreciate you being here today. And, it's always an honor when alumni come back. And it always feels good. Like you said, you were a candlestick guy, but you see Levi now. Levi gets turned up, and this team is turned up. And on the defensive side, I mean, this team is playing lights out defense.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure, I don't know if you followed, but Dre Greenlaw you watch him and you watch the way he plays. He plays aggressive. He's like you. He's
another
SEC
guy.
Yeah, he's a thumper. He's a thumper.
He's a thumper. He can run.
Yeah, and you saw last week kind of what happened. I mean, he's aggressive. And I'm just wondering, you played the position. And so being aggressive as a linebacker is what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
And last week he gets caught up in that situation. I'm not mad at him with it. I mean, I love the play. But talk about Jerry Greenlaw and Fred Warner, these two linebackers and how they're playing right now.
Top 2 in the NFL. And
Easy.
I'm talking about what they can do and what they consistently do. Both guys can run sideline to sideline like it's the wind. You look at the leadership capabilities of Fred and just seeing the maturation of Fred for me is just seeing how he started out, wasn't starting, and then he just kept clicking, kept clicking. And his background of being a safety, that star guy, rover guy, what they like to call in college, and now coming in excelling at the linebacker position. Like, he's amazing, man. And so when I look at them and you look at the identity of this team, it's not by accident that you fall in love with it. Because, whether or not if you're looking at corporations, whether or not if you're looking at an artist perform, the reason why you fall in love with both is because they both have a brand. And when you look at this 49ers football team, it's a brand of football that I know when I turn that TV on, I'm going to get it for 4 hours. And they are a big part of it when you talk about Dre Greenlaw and also Fred Warner.
When the position itself, because this started when you were playing, the amount of space you now have to cover. So from Patrick Willis to Bowman and these guys in the middle. So it used to be, man, you're going forward and you're thumping and these kind of things. And now it's everything comes over the middle. Everything is in that zone.
Yeah.
So how difficult is that to deal with? Because you're talking receivers, tight ends, running backs. You got to cover everybody in that area.
It's tough, man. And, even when I was my later years, 8, 9, and 10 here, 11 and 12 down in San Diego, the game had turned into what it is today. The number one personnel when I came into the league was 21, 2 backs, 1 tight end. When I'm going out the league, my last 5, 6 years, it's 11 personnel. And so in order to have guys to be able to make plays, you got to have guys who know what the hell is going on, number one. Meaning if you get motion, don't freak out. At least I know where to make the checks and put everybody at. And number 2 is just being able to cover X amount of the field, because 11 personnel doesn't guarantee the tight end is always going to run right over the middle. You got guys like Kittle. You have guys like over in Kansas City, Travis Kelce. So all of these guys, they stretch the field. So it's important to have guys who can have that type of range. And as a defensive coordinator, I think about Steve Wilkes. He was a perfect hire for here. And I knew that because he was here when I was here. Beautiful mind on the defensive side. Actually, I felt like it was a blessing for the 49ers to have him, just because I surely thought Carolina should have kept him, knowing how he got that locker room back to where it used to be. So, listen, man, it's the brand. It goes back to the brand of the brand of the style of football that they play.
It's so funny you mentioned that, too, because it's like he's one of the top coaching candidates, they say, for the last few years. And I know he had a tough situation in Arizona, and then you have him in-house, and you're trying to rebuild something. Instead, you move on to somebody else, and they're already looking now for another coach. Teo Spikes with us here in studio. I want to ask you about what the Niners do offensively that makes it tough for a defense. Pete Carroll was saying, look, I know we saw him 2 weeks ago, but when you have Deebo Samuel and McCaffrey, we all know on paper what weapons those guys are, but he says what they do with that pre-snap motion, he says a lot of times they'll put one guy in motion first just to try to gather information, because it's going to force you as a defense to show him something. He goes, now the center may know something, the receiver may know something, Brock Purdy does, now he moves somebody else over here, and he goes, now we know exactly what you're doing, and we can find the open spots. As a defender, what the hell do you do? Like, how difficult is that when you have those weapons and constant motion pre-snap?
Constant motion pre-snap is one by itself. When you see a guy who's going back and forth across early, you gather that and say, okay, all right, he moved. That's typical conventional motion. But when they do a whole nother set and then bring motion back across as a linebacker, it's all about your eyes before you do anything, because if you can't read, you can't play. And so that eye candy that they throw across, like, that's hard, man. And so you have to be disciplined enough to know I have to read my keys, stay with the lineman, going from the quarterback to the near back, all the way back through the guard. All of that matters. And that's what makes it so hard to be able to stop, on top of having not just quality players, but you got all-stars. You got at least 4 all-stars on that offensive side. So it's hard, man.
Plus a Hall of Fame offensive lineman. You know what I mean? I mean, there's weapons everywhere.
Yeah. And you talk about how the game has changed for that position as a linebacker. Is it changed because tight ends are more athletic? Because when I played, we had tight ends that they were blockers. They were just undersized offensive linemen. Yeah.
Slugs.
And now, you got these speedsters.
Yeah.
I mean, is that what's changed that position as linebackers? I mean, when you came in and then, you see Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, now you see Fred. I mean, has it changed because the tight ends have become more athletic, or the offense, the schemes of offenses have changed?
I think conversely, it's everybody.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the tight ends, you look at all the skilled players. Hell, you look at Trent. When the last time you've seen a lineman over 300 pounds and
he can
run? He runs in the 4s, in the 40s.
Yeah. He's working out with AP.
You know what I'm saying? So it's crazy. So you got to be able to get guys who are able to not only move, be explosive, and also, by the way, you got to be able to make plays when they come to you.
Teo, great to have you, man. A lot of fun to have you in the house. You said it's great to be back in the Bay Area. Niners and the Seahawks. It's a rivalry game. They can clinch a playoff spot today and the division next week, and then the road to Vegas, man. Let's get out there.
Let's go, man. Let's go to Vegas.
We'll see you. We'll see you there. We'll see you in Vegas.
I deserve to be in Vegas.
Yes, you do. Yeah,
we all do.
We all right in Vegas. You look good, man.
We all do. Let's get.
We all deserve to be in Vegas. Says Teo Spikes, the honorary captain for today. More to come. The Steve Young Show, of course, our 49er player spotlight, and then we'll go out to the broadcast booth. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ Dennis Brown, John Lund, Niners Seahawks on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland back with your 49er player spotlight ahead of week 14. It's the 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks for the second time in the last 3 weeks. And we're going to go to our player spotlight today, Jauan Jennings. That's right, Thad and Jauan had a big third down reception last week. 3 total catches and also broke a nice touchdown run, 44 yards for his first touchdown of the season, Brock Purdy talked about what an asset it is to have a guy like Jauan Jennings who brings consistency to the offense.
I mean, he's so consistent. You know, JJ brings so much juice and swagger to the team. Like, when he catches the ball, man, everyone, and he converts a first down, like, everyone feeds off it, and you can see it, you know. He has fun playing the game in meetings around this place in the locker room. Like, JJ is just, like, he's got a different vibe to him, and we all love it. You know, we feed off it. So for him to be able to get those balls like he did in the game, some crucial third down conversions, man, and then obviously the touchdown, well worth it, man. We love him.
As Brock Purdy, they're talking about his third down receiver, Jauan Jennings, who's having a fantastic season, has carved out a nice role for himself in the offense. Big play today, and that's why the spotlight is on Jauan Jennings. He's this week's 49er Player Spotlight. Steve Young, the best half hour in radio. He joins myself and Tom Tolbert every Wednesday, kids' sports schedule permitting, throughout the football season, sometimes Thursdays. Bottom line, we track him down for the best half hour in radio. Steve was awesome this week, as he always is. He said he doesn't know if there's anybody that can beat the 49ers.
Talent that comes out of that locker room, at receiver, 2 top 5 receivers, a top 5 tight end, a quarterback that's just really understands the system. Everyone says Kyle loves to run the ball. Oh, really? Kyle loves to smash people in offense, and if you give him a chance, he will eat you up. Such innovation, such cool stuff they did last week, and Brock was. That's what we promised. Very tight guardrails, right? We're gonna very few mistakes. Ball's coming out. It's and Kyle just works that system so perfectly. I don't want to in early December say this team's lock for the Super Bowl, but I mean I don't know if without injury how does anyone beat them? I mean they look as good and talented as a team has been since the Cowboys of the early '90s, the Ours of the early '90s. They look that good.
Yeah, I mean, you see it on tape, though. And then, obviously, we put the blueprint out there. Hopefully, Cowboys watch the tape. We made Jalen stay in the pocket and escape outside instead of those B gaps, and paid off. Because Jalen's looking at the rush every play. So, yeah, you just have to be disciplined and not give him that quick escape route where he could get to his guys quick, and it paid off.
Couldn't tell whose voice that was. Kid, Nick Bosa, clearly, who says they gave a blueprint last week for how to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, whether that's true or not. And whether or not you give a blueprint and it works or you need the personnel to get it done is also a big question. 49ers and the Seahawks coming your way today in about, about hour and 10 minutes away here from hour and 15 away from kickoff here. We'll toss it over to Greg Papa and Tim Ryan in just a couple of minutes. Great conversation we just had with Teo Spikes. By the way, he's hosting a podcast, Behind the Mask with Teo Spikes, and he's got a lot of great guests on there and some great breakdown there of the pre-snap motion stuff and how confusing that is for a linebacker.
Motion coach.
All right, Oscar, can kill that bit, John. Let's get you the scores today for the what's going on across the NFL. We are at just starting the third quarter. I guess we're 11 minutes left in the third quarter. Tampa still on top of Atlanta, 12-10. The Rams are leading the Baltimore Ravens, 20-17 at halftime. Rams 17 second quarter points there. There was no defense, it seemed like, for the Rams in the first half, John. Really, in the first few series.
Well, the only way the Ravens are scoring is by defensive breakdowns all of a sudden. Right. And it's raining, so they're having some trouble. So, look, we're talking about running the table, and we're looking at the Ravens as maybe the team that is going to be the toughest at the end. The way that the Rams are playing, they're 6-6. They swept these very same Seahawks, and they're in Baltimore winning that game 20-17. So that last game of the season against the Rams, that's no gimme at this point.
Yeah, it's never a gimme with the Rams. I thought that was until the Cleveland game. The Rams game was the hardest game the Niners had played to this point. And maybe, I mean, if you erase the 3 losses and you run through the Niner victories, the Rams game was the toughest game of the year. And they needed legit second half adjustments. And didn't they lose? Was it Brandon Ayuk who went out early in that game? I think he took a hit early and got hurt.
And plus, Cooper Kupp didn't play in that game.
He was not back yet.
Nakua and Kupp.
It was Tutu Atwell in that game.
So they've got some tough guys.
But big-time adjustments in the second half of that one.
The biggest story that's happening right now, it's been confirmed that it's going to be Drew Lock and not Geno Smith today. So that is official. That's an inactive on the Seahawks roster.
You better lock this one up, dude.
Plus, well done. Plus some names on the 49ers. We're talking about, injuries and everything. Eric Armstead, of course, out. Ross Dwelly, of course, out. Elijah Mitchell and Spencer Burford. So, again, John Feliciano at right guard, which is, look, he's a street fighter. He's going to be fine. But there are some names there. And then Darrell Luter Jr., who played well. Remember that 66-yard kickoff return that Seattle got? They got their first field goal. He saved a touchdown on that play, and they're already down on some special teams players.
Dude, his first career tackle, right. I was loving that. I mean, the whole post game I kept talking about that. He sprinted him down. That was a game-changing play, I thought, early in that one, right after they grind out a touchdown.
Yeah. So that was on Eskridge, who could have taken that back for a touchdown. So there's some significant names on the inactive list, but the big one is Drew Lock starting, Geno Smith out. And look, Geno hasn't had the year that he had last year, but he played well against Dallas. There was a ton of pressure on him, and you got to believe that if you're the 49ers, not that it changes your game plan a whole lot, but you're going to get after Drew Lock and hope he makes mistakes.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, you want that defensive line now to take over the football game, set the tone early, make this team one-dimensional, and say, listen, Drew Lock, you've got to win the game. Throwing the football down the football field, and you got to get after him. So, I mean, don't focus too much on the quarterback. It's not Geno; it's the backup quarterback. But you focus on what your defense and what you do and what you do well. Sticky coverage, and you get after the quarterback.
The Niners and the Seahawks kicking off here at 1:05. We'll hand it over to Greg and Tim in just a few minutes here. Yeah, Drew Lock going to start today. So Geno Smith is I don't know if is he completely inactive? He's not going to dress at all. He's just not going to be available. So
and that's why they brought up Sean Mannion. And so he's going to be your backup quarterback. And look, he's bounced around the league. He knows this offense. He knows Seattle's offense. He's been with them before. Oregon State product, went to Foothill. So, here's a guy that, he's very smart. In fact, this week, Pete Carroll was talking about him and said he thinks he's going to be a coach. His dad's a coach, so he thinks he's going to be a coach when he's done. He's that smart. But to me, even though Geno Smith has not had the kind of year he had last year, there's a big drop-off to him to Drew Lock.
Considerably.
Because if you remember him from his Denver days, he struggled. And then Seattle, he's come into a couple of games this year with Seattle, and it just doesn't look like he gets it. So a critical game for Seattle, and they got to go to their backup quarterback. And again, I don't think it's going to change anything or the game plan at all for the 49ers. They probably knew that this was going to happen. I talked to a couple of friends of mine last night in Seattle, and they said they didn't think he was going to play. So I'm sure that the Niners had this, but like you said, Dennis, this isn't going to change anything. Just like you got after Geno Smith a couple of weeks ago, you got to do the same thing against Drew Lock. The difference to me is I think Drew Lock's going to make more mistakes than Geno Smith.
I think so, too. He's not as accurate. He's likely to make more mistakes. And as we talked about earlier, this offense is not really well equipped to keep pace with the Niner offense. I think they're going to have to force turnovers. I don't know if you take different shots defensively. This is a game where Niners in all three phases, and we've seen this. It's always with teams that are inferior or running a backup quarterback or a divisional game the second time in 3 weeks like that. Things like special teams, things like getting off the field on third down, the normal things you've got to do to sort of make sure you're keeping pace with. We just talked to Teo Spikes about it, about playing your game and using your identity. That's what happened last week. They didn't start the game like that, stuck to the identity, and Brock caught fire, and so did the rest of the offense. A couple more scores here from around the NFL before we throw it over to the broadcast team in Greg Papa and Tim Ryan. The Detroit Lions now tied with the Bears, 13-13 with 8:38 to play in the third quarter. Bengals are on top of the Indianapolis Colts, 21-14. Jake Browning having another good start in this one. Jacksonville down 14-7 to the Browns in Cleveland at the half. New Orleans up 14-3 in the middle of the third quarter there against Carolina. And the Jets finally on the board, 7-0 over the Houston Texans. They're now coming down tough there.
It's a brutal game, man.
That's a tough game. It's a tough game there as D'Amico Ryans and his guys try to figure this one out. Still to come, as I mentioned, you got Minnesota's going out to Vegas, take on the Raiders. Seattle and the Niners, of course, here at 105, a 4-game slate in the afternoon window. You got Buffalo at Kansas City. That's a fun one. Denver at the Chargers, also kind of intriguing. And then Philadelphia is going up against Dallas tonight. That's the game we will all have our eyes on, especially if the Niners pull this one off tonight. Somebody here on it's our guy Todd on the YouTube chat says, "Go Dallas."
It's weird, but you got to hope.
I know. It says, "Go Dallas." LOL. Actually,
their only other chance is Seattle next week, and who's to say Geno plays in that game? And the Eagles are there, and then it's we've talked about it. It's the Giants, Arizona Giants. So if they don't lose the next 2 weeks, and really probably tonight against Dallas, despite that win, Philly's going to hold the top spot.
The most important part is that if you pull this off and you win today and Dallas pulls it off and wins tonight, then you control your own fate is really what it comes down to. The Niners then, if they win out, will be the number 1 seed. If they don't, I do believe they're the best equipped team in the NFL to finish as a number 2 seed and then still go out and potentially watch a misstep by Philadelphia or just go out and outright win it in Philly again. We'll be back with you on the postgame show, streaming on Twitch, YouTube, and, of course, the KNBR app. Niners and the Seahawks coming up next, only here on the Sports Leader.